What's up? Welcome back, everybody. How we doing? New York Comic Con Twitch stage, powered by Phantom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, dude. March to War. We just did a little segment about that.
We did.
I had my boy Rich.
You nailed it.
Rich Gallup. Thank you. Yeah, I had to. No, I have it written down because I remember the first name. The last name just went.
It's gone.
Yeah.
Let's go with Rich.
Rich Gallup.
Yeah, it's down there.
From Disruptor Beam, the executive producer of
That's
Disruptor
really the more
Beam.
important name to get right.
Yep. But we have also on the stage with us, we got Dan Murray, who is the president
Oh, wow.
of Skybound.
Thanks for that introduction. I appreciate it.
Hey, man, I love you, man. I love you every time you're on an interview. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. We also got Job Stauffer. Job Stauffer, thank you. With Telltale.
Yes.
Okay.
Telltale.
Yeah.
Video games.
Yep. And we're going to talk about all the different like things that Walking Dead, Skybound, stuff like that is doing in gaming.
Great.
Let's start off probably with what everybody wants to know about, me personally as well. I want to know what's going on with Telltale.
Oh.
I want to know what's going on.
I'm leading this panel.
Is that bad?
No. You
Are you ready?
Everyone else, so let's get us out of the way.
No, because honestly, I could talk about the Telltale series for like hours.
And we don't want to do that. There's lots to talk about. So we'll get me out of the way first.
Okay.
So as I think fans know, we kicked off Walking Dead in 2012 with the first season, playing as Lee. Met this little girl named Clementine. One thing leads to another. A lot of sad and devastating things happen, and then we're on for 2 more seasons, up through season 2, and A New Frontier. We're playing as Clem in season 2. We meet Clem again as she's older, playing as Javi in A New Frontier. And we're here at New York Comic Con just a couple months ago. At San Diego Comic Con, we announced, we love this series. We love this character so much. We know the fans love her so much. Let's come back and let's round this out for one final season. Let's make season 4 the final story for Clementine. And I have to say, the hardest thing about that has been announcing a final season without everyone yelling at us saying, does that mean Clementine's gonna die?
No, that's on everybody's mind, and I'm sure like.
So he plays Clem. It's the final season. 1 + 2 = dead Clem, right? And that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, this is not a witch hunt. We're not gonna try that exactly.
But no, it's we've all been big fans of The Walking Dead for years at Telltale, and we love working with Skybound. Everyone at Skybound, Robert and Dan, and all the producers and the writers, Sean Makowitz, and a lot of those guys are up at our office. We actually, just this week, we were in the writer's room working on the final season, hammering out the details. We're going to be kicking this thing off in the first half of next year. You are going to be playing as Clementine throughout all of the episodes.
Until she dies.
And until the end of the series.
You bite your tongue, sir. I will slap that microphone off your head.
He knows nothing about
I
it.
don't know anything. This is not my company.
And most we don't want to spoil anything. That's the hardest thing, is to talk about our games and the stories ahead of time without spoiling. Especially as we're in the writers' room right now, we have a lot of the talent. We can't say who exactly just yet, but some talent that worked with us on season 1, even all the way back then, is kind of coming back into the room for the final season. Because one of our goals here is, we started with season 1, and so many players really fell in love with the story, fell in love with Clem and these characters. We've gone all the way through to the 4th, and we want to finish it off and kind of bookend this whole game series that we did, where I think a lot of the themes and ideas and maybe even characters that were explored in the first season are kind of still on the table to kind of bookend as a final season. So we're in the writer's room right now. A lot of really exciting stuff is happening. If you played season 1 and maybe you didn't play 2 or 3 yet, we encourage you to do so. But even if you haven't, you're going to be able to come into the 4th and final season and get something that is, we think, tonally kind of really going to bookend our whole series real nicely. And Clem fans aren't going to want to miss it. It's really something special and awesome. And Melissa Hutchison, her voice of Clem, is back. And I can't say any other actors, any other characters. It'd be a huge spoiler, but
come on, man.
I mean, but I can say it's going to be we announced 2018. We can say it's in the first half, probably around spring, summer, April, May. We'll be seeing a premiere around that time.
Q2.
Q2 is a good let's hold it there for now.
Yeah, jargon you.
No, hey, listen, it's become a thing now. Being in gaming, you know these terms. Q1, Q2, Q3. Like, when is your game coming out?
It could shift, but right now we're aiming for the first half of next year.
Excellent. So you said you were in the writers' room.
Yeah.
Now, is there like an agreed upon like basic idea of what you want, or is it just like right now we're figuring that out?
I mean, that's kind of we kind of get that idea on the table a little bit.
Okay.
And once we kind of talk about it, then we get everyone in the room. We're like, okay, was this the idea? This is where we wanted to go. It could always shift and change a little bit along the way, but right now, I think after this week, this big creative conference we've just had, coming right out of it this week, it's like, okay, this is going to be really good. And we produce just like television. So just like you see, the AMC show or any of the shows that you watch, we produce our games kind of very differently than most other game developers. We write, we know where we're going to start, we know where we're going to end with this thing, but it can always change along the way. I think you just had Carlton Cuse from Lost was on the stage. I think they know a thing or two about changing things along the way.
Yeah,
because you got to listen to the fans.
Right.
You got to listen to that input.
It's got to be nice to have that flexibility along the way.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's but it's always best if you know where you're going to start and where you're going to end.
Right.
But knowing how to change the course along the way.
You can improvise along the way a little bit.
A little bit. And luckily we've got Skybound with us and great writers and
you guys have been working on this for such a long time. You probably are feeling pretty good about
it's good, and honestly, the comic and the show is going to go on for an indefinite period of time, and that's awesome. We get to keep watching, but in games, it's really rare where I think a studio says, you know what, we're not going to sequel this out forever. You're not going to see this at E3 3030, 2030. Like, we want to say, you know what, we love this character. Let's put a bow on this in a way that's elegant and
it'll feel
something that the fans deserve.
Well, and as much as it breaks my heart to hear that this is the last story with Clem and this kind of arc or whatever you want to call it, it's nice as a fan to know, like, I'm going to get some closure, like, because you get seriously attached to these guys. I mean, I physically cried at The Walking Dead season 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And I'm really attached to all these characters, and I'm glad that we might have some sort of
something.
End.
I don't want it to end. We hope we don't disappoint you, and we're excited for everyone to play it. So stay tuned, follow our Twitter, and
one thing I did want to ask about as far as being in the writers' room and stuff.
Yeah.
How many writers are on this?
Oh gosh,
is there a ton, or
there's a lot of people in the room right now, kind of kicking around the ideas, and then it kind of boils down from that big pot of people, where it's sort of like story consultants.
Sure. Okay.
And then we kind of get it down, and we narrow it down to like 2 or 3 writers for an episode with a lead writer, and when you're working interactive, that writer also kind of mind melds with a narrative designer who's also kind of like a writer, but kind of writing the design and the interactions.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to say. There's no one person that makes Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And that's across all mediums.
And I'm sure that, like, there's got to be lots of compromise within, like, some writer has an idea and the other writer's like, no, I don't think that'll work, and I don't think it'll be right, and stuff like that. And I'm sure you have to, like, really put your heads together for certain
and we look at data, too. We look at what players have decided and how they treated other characters in the past.
Good point, yeah.
Yeah, and that always influences a lot of our creative decisions as well.
Awesome, man. I can't wait, dude. So. Look for it. Guaranteed. Cute. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
2018 guaranteed.
Yeah, there you go.
Like,
2018 guaranteed. It's like, don't do that. Don't put words in my mouth. Yeah. But thank you, Joe, for talking about that. I can't wait. A huge fan of the Telltale series, all the Telltale series.
It's so weird to be like, I'm excited, but I also know, like, obviously every time I'm going in, something sad happens. So, like, it's gonna be amazing, but at the same time, it's like I'm excited to feel also maybe sad about some things too.
That's called being on brand. I would
say. So we had a chance to discuss
March to War.
The March to War.
Yep.
Let's mention it again, just in case people are just tuning in. Tell me about March to War, real quick.
March to War is the hottest new Walking Dead mobile game, available on Google or Android and
15 seconds.
iOS devices.
No, I'm just kidding.
Excellent. You create a base in the Washington, D.C. area. We follow the comics, and basically what's happened, Negan's showed up, bats have been swung, and then we just kind of branch away from that. And imagine if now, in this world where Rick and Negan and everyone's kind of squaring off, but haven't really marched to war yet.
Right, yeah.
There are thousands of other people, and they're you.
Yeah.
And you're there, and you build up your own scraggly band of survivors and try to get them to be tough, and you build and you build and you build until you realize, like, building is nice, but you have some stuff that I would like to have instead. And then you get to really test yourself. Am I Herschel? Am I Rick? Am I Negan? You're Negan. Everyone's Negan. We find.
I mean, everybody's got a little Negan.
Everyone thinks they're Rick and they're actually Negan. It's what we're learning.
Well, it comes down to you having food or me having food. I'm going to pick me every time.
It's called March to War, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Knock on your neighbor's door and ask nicely if you can have their guns and supplies.
Yeah, you don't get to do that. We need your food. We need your salvage. We need your fuel. We need your lumber.
We need your people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's not Walking Dead. Walk in the flowers.
So this is not walking in the flowers. No.
One thing that's interesting for us as developers.
It is look at the flowers, Lizzie.
It's
not walking the flowers.
Turn away.
So we love our friends at Telltale and their story-based games, and we're trying to make a game that it's a mobile free-to-play game where people are going to war, but how do you inject story into that? And that's where our friends at Skybound are helping. Like we got to create a new original character, Amira. We also get to we have a story arc that you guys helped us with as well that we love, but then also each individual council member, like not just Rick and Negan, but also your Rositas and Gabriels. Like everyone has these. How do you tell a story to a mobile game audience that just wants to keep playing?
Sure.
When we wedge it in 3 sentences at a time. So working with Dan's team, so this is here was a fun challenge. We want the players to have Herschel as a council member in our game. Herschel is dead at this point. No surprise.
Zombie Herschel.
Zombie Herschel.
Confirmed.
No. So we work with Dan's team. The compromise is it's actually Rick telling you his stories about Herschel and what he remembers about Herschel. And then it's kind of like a little flashback thing. It's like, I remember Herschel. And then you get to see Herschel tell you about the importance of building and working together and making a community. Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that's really fun about games from a storytelling perspective for us at Skybound is when we get to work with great partners, what we like to do is really lean in on the story in the very beginning to create this beginning and an end, but we get to dissect them. So I think obviously the stuff that we have been doing with Telltale, it's a little bit more linear because it's very much driven like a television show, as Joe mentioned. But when we look at the mobile games, it's obviously not quite the same. You can't really just tell a linear story quite the same way.
Right.
So what we try to do is create these narrative arcs and create a beginning and an end in that sense with these characters, but then completely dissect them into pieces and then sort of drop them in depending on how the gameplay sort of plays out.
Exactly. Like every single survivor. So in March to War, you lead a camp basically, and each person has a little 3-sentence story, and we have this giant database that it's procedurally generated, et cetera. So and running that stuff with Skybound, we're like, hey, is this on brand? Is this off brand? I remember a fun one and then we also have council members pop up with hey, A or B kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
And so one was Michonne needs her katana sharpened, and you had an option you can ask for something in return or say no problem. And the original version of it, we said, for asking in return, we said, yeah, I'll sharpen it, but I just want to swing it around a few times. and Skybound came like, no one
touches
that.
me. Yeah, no one gets to touch her sword.
And that's what she said for her answer, but it's we understand, so we changed it. But you try to interject that fun, but also make sure it's still fitting within.
Yeah, you gotta follow some guidelines for sure. Well, we got actually lots more stuff to talk about, so I want to get to Scopeless Road to Survival. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we got some more sort of updates coming later this month.
Okay.
So sort of tied to sort of when the show is premiering, we'll be announcing some really amazing new features in that have to do with some new storylines that we're introducing.
Okay.
Robert's been very sort of closely aligned with some of these new arcs, so it's kind of cool. He's going to be sort of talking about that soon.
Okay.
So that's kind of it. Scopely's, that game, Road to Survival, has been running now for a couple of years, so it's really been great to sort of see it develop over time. And the community is really a passionate one over there. But there's that. And then, we have a couple other things coming out in 2018 that, some people have probably been waiting for a little while. And that's our friends over at Starbreeze. So we are. That game is still. We're going to have some. We're going to start rolling out a lot more stuff. Maybe later this year, or the beginning of next year. Where we're going to start talking a lot more about it. We've kind of gone quiet for the past year and a half because, those guys have been really, heads down trying to make this the greatest game they've ever made. So this is their magnus opus, they'd like to call it. So, so they're really investing a lot into it, and we're really excited about making a first-person shooter, but in the Walking Dead universe for PC and console that, will satisfy and meet those expectations of what people might think of what that kind of game can deliver in The Walking Dead. So
talk about another studio that knows story.
Yeah, they know story, and they know how to make shooters. That's for sure. They're pretty good at that.
One of my studio-wise, story-wise, I am a big fan of Oxenfree from Night School.
Yep.
And didn't that just come out on Switch last night?
Thank you, Job, for that segue because excellent. We have goodies. Oxenfree just this week came out on Switch. So for those of you who don't know what Oxenfree is, it's been out now for over a year. It's a beautiful adventure game. It was written by a guy named Adam Hines, who actually
former
worked
Telltale writer
on the first season of The Walking Dead, actually at Telltale. He and his cousin, Sean Crankle, started a studio in Los Angeles. So it's a small team, and they built this amazing, story-driven game that I think really sort of moves the genre forward in some really amazing ways.
I know tons of people who are just really just love Oxenfree.
Honestly,
came out on the Switch yesterday, right?
I'm a huge fan. I love those guys. I was just texting Sean about Blade Runner something today.
Yeah.
And if you guys like Stranger Things, these guys basically tapped into Stranger Things before Stranger Things landed. It's really kind of like that Goonies.
No, they wanted
80s,
to make Goonies.
It's awesome. Those guys know what they're doing. And as us as just fans of adventure games and storytelling, you need to play Oxenfree. It's one of the best games of last year and probably still this year, even though it came out before. It's really good.
On the Switch now, you said?
Yep.
Yeah,
on the
Switch
Switch?
last night.
On the Switch now.
All right,
so
cool.
for those of you looking for more games on the Switch, go get that one. It's Oxenfree, and you can get it on PC, console. It's also on iOS and Android. So
I got my Switch in my backpack right now. I'm going to go get that.
Can I plug another Skybound game?
Absolutely.
Yes, please do.
I am a huge VR enthusiast. I've got a Vive at home.
That was on my list next.
I love. So these guys work with Other Ocean, and they made a game called Giant Cop, where you are in VR and you're in a city. Basically, you're
a giant cop.
You're a giant cop, and you've got to serve and protect from 50 feet in the air over this huge city, and you're kind of, stomping around and lifting up cars and trying to find drug dealers and sniff them out.
That's right.
And it's awesome. It's really, really cool.
There's nudists bathing on this beach that you have to sort of go out and arrest, So
do you have to arrest them, though?
Well, you can throw them into the ocean. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So you be a good cop or a bad cop?
Can I just let them be?
And you pick them up, and you're like, oh, no, don't arrest me. And you're like, okay. Out in the ocean, and then you just walk around and
that does not sound like a good cop.
It is. You're not a good cop or bad cop. You're a giant cop.
You're just giant
It's
cop.
great.
Yeah, so. I think being giant surpasses morality.
Yeah.
But is there something on the horizon for Walking Dead VR?
Walking Dead VR is in the works, so we announced it at E3 this year. We have a partnership with a company called Skydance.
Skybound and Skydance.
Yep.
Hey.
People got confused between those, who's who. So we said, screw it. We'll just do something together, and that should hopefully solve the problem.
Those guys are really good too. They did a game, Archangel, on VR. Really, really good. Really slick. Really high production.
Yeah, and then they have another game called Pwned that's out as well.
Yeah?
So they have a couple games, but Archangel is a mech shooter that's in VR that's amazing.
It's insane.
Yeah, and
I actually saw that at San Diego.
Yeah.
And we're working with those guys on I think just as a common theme for what we try to do at Skybound with The Walking Dead specifically is because it is this this universe, and since it's not about the end of the world necessarily, it's about the beginning of civilization. That means we can expand it into all new stories, and Robert's really excited about sort of creating new narratives and not necessarily being precious over having to control all of those. He really likes to work with people who can deliver their interpretations of those storylines. So with Skydance, we're doing something similar. It'll be in a whole new location, all new characters, new stories. So we're going to try to deliver something in VR that's really organic to the platform. And I think that was the main thing with for us when we started looking at VR as an opportunity with The Walking Dead. Most people came in and just, when we did some stuff with Starbreeze early on where they wanted to play within that platform because they were making Star VR, there was more of a rail shooter, but we had a lot of other people approach us with that in mind. Hey, just go shoot zombies. And we're like,
That's actually the first VR experience of this generation that I had was on a bus.
Oh yeah, I was on that bus
with a shotgun and a chair. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's something that they did early on, and it taught us a lot about VR in general. But then we sort of took a step back, and we were pretty patient about waiting for the right people to sort of come into this space that were not treating it kind of like as a small marketing event, but really treat it as something that would be more cinematic and something that would be just more, I think just taking a bigger swing at it and really making it feel like, hey, this is the product that VR should, offer you as something that's a tentpole event.
Right.
So that's something that we're in the works on, and we had another sort of story room process that we're going through, and we're just trying to flesh all that stuff out now.
Seems like a match made in heaven.
Probably easier to say what you aren't doing. You guys are
well, we don't have much time left.
Incredible.
We're not. Somebody
we have 1 minute left.
Okay.
I need to ask
me a dating sim game the other night though. So a Walking Dead dating sim game. I wasn't quite sure how to
Who knows though? Maybe.
Yeah. Like 2 zombies?
Yeah.
Or just like
you play as a zombie.
I don't really know. Maybe it's a bad date.
But real quick, I wanted to get this out because I'm a fan of Thief of Thieves. And I heard there's a game, Rival Games, is coming up with something.
Yeah. Rival Games is making, so Rival Games is a developer out in Finland. They have been working on Thief of Thieves for a little bit of time now, and they've been working with the artist of the comic book, a guy named Sean Martinborough, directly.
Who's awesome.
He's doing a lot of the sort of what we call the character profiles. It's an adventure game. It's a beautiful game. We actually started showing some of it at Comic-Con in San Diego. So there's some trailers, there's assets out there that are online. You can kind of see it, but we haven't announced the date yet, but we're leaning into next year. So I don't know what those cues are, but I would choose one of the earlier cues rather than later.
No, I just wanted to get you to say there's going to be a Thief of Thieves game.
There's going to be a Thief of Thieves game. There's going to be a Thief of Thieves
confirmed.
Game. That is confirmed.
Right, awesome.
And we're going to start showing more and more about that later this year, early next.
Excellent. Well, Dan, Joe, Rich, thank you guys for being here. Yeah. Check it out, skybound.com. You can check out Telltale, Disruptor Beam. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Look forward to see what's coming in Q1, 2, and 3, and 4.
Thank you,
Don't go away. We got lots more stuff coming up right after this break. Stick around.